Advertisers are trying to sell a product, and I think what they miss out on is the depth of stories from people with disabilities. Without the opportunities and the pipelines of advertisers in film and television opening up their doors to better stories, that pipeline won't exist. A lot of the process for performers with disabilities, they're not even invited in.
People focus on the disability, like they see the wheelchair, they see weakness, they see inability, unattractive, undesirable, unlovable, instead of seeing beyond your disability or seeing beyond your differences and just getting to know you as a person and getting to see what you can do.
With a disability, you're already like the underdog. People already doubt you. You know, your biggest insecurity is out there for the world to see. And so it's every day that you have to overcome little things, or, the stares are always gonna be there, the questions are always gonna be there.
It took me a couple of years to figure out that little people aren't seen as people in the industry.
It's very rare that you see a blind individual representing some type of fashion brand or beauty brand or really anything. Like, we don't have a lot of role models that people see and know what we can do. And I think that's like a big issue. Like, I think people just don't know.
My face got covered up so many times with prosthetics and glue and goop and makeup and foam, alien heads and furry monsters and trolls and masks.
Usually portrayed in a negative way where there's pity on them. That transitions to the real world. Their life may be too hard. They might not be able to do all these X, Y, and Z things.
Representation of people with disabilities in a powerful and a positive and authentic way, that would have helped me in my journey to know that, okay, I can do it too. I don't feel represented. I don't feel like somebody like me I don't see myself on TV.
Growing up with very limited exposure in the media, where you rarely ever see people with disabilities, especially limb differences, portrayed in a positive manner, it limits the beliefs of yourself and what you think you're capable of and what you can do and your place in the world.
Not just being represented, but authentic representation, and not just dressing people to make them look blind by throwing some glasses on them and giving them a white cane. So you have people that can still see, and they can still see colors, and they can still see this, and some people can't see at all. And so even sometimes when I go in for like some type of role, they're like, do you have glasses? And I'm like, no, I don't wear glasses. That's such a stereotypical thing. Like, we don't all have dogs, we don't all have canes.
They think they're being creative. A leprechaun, to me, is not a creative idea.
The best way to have representation in film and television and advertising is write characters and cast performers with disabilities, period. You're a writer and you say, hey, I want to write a wheelchair using woman in this role. How do I write that authentically? Well, write a woman character and then cast a wheelchair user. And they look at me and go, what do you mean? And I go, well, a wheelchair is not a character trait. It's a mode of transportation. It's irrelevant. Same with every other disability. You don't need to explain it, it just exists.
If you really wanted to get creative, put us in a situation where we actually live.
And it doesn't need to be made a big deal that a person with a disability is tying their shoe.
Having a transaction at a bank teller window, or they're getting their car washed, or they're walking a dog.
An amputee story is different than a wheelchair user, different than an intellectual disability, different than Down syndrome, different than blind and deaf. And they all have their own parameters, and each one of those can be someone who's rich, poor, black, white, gay, straight, trans, and disabled. Well, what if you were a disabled athlete versus a disabled chess player?
Our stories aren't being told authentically. Other people who are non-disabled are playing our characters. Disabled representation in the media is 3 to 5%. 95% of those roles are played by non-disabled actors.
Living with a disability is a natural thing, and it's a common thing. It's so much more common than you actually see or think.
People with disabilities are 20% of the population.
It's so important to think about people with disabilities because it's a billion-dollar industry. You're missing out on a whole population of people who are stylish and fashionable. Like, we want to get dressed. Like, we want to look cute, we want to be sexy, we want to do all the things that everybody else is doing.
They have $175 billion in discretionary spending according to the CBO. You don't want to have a part of that. I mean, every single person is going to become disabled at some point in their life. You're shying away from life, which means you're only going to sell half your products. If you include all of life, you'll sell all of them.
In a way, I do have grace for people because I was there once, completely ignorant, didn't know anything.
I can't expect you to know. You can't know somebody's story. You can't know someone's existence. So you have to open up to it and not get mad when people don't know. Because how the hell are you supposed to know?
But you can look at someone in the eyes and say, I'd like to know about you. I'd like to know who you are. I'd like to just have a discussion and expose myself to what a difference is and what that means, because that is just real.
There's this phrase like, we need to normalize disability. We don't have to be normal. We are normal. And your life may be more difficult, but doesn't mean that you're no longer able or capable.
And the possibilities are endless. And so I would just like to see a variety of my community being represented in general, regardless of what the product is.
Move past the labels and just show people who have heart, you know, and allow their hearts to be seen.